Hello and welcome to July's Breaking Barriers LinkedIn Live. Today, we are talking about investment. We are following the money. We have called today's session From Spend to Impact, getting real return on investment from talent accelerators. My name is Rachel Schofield. I'm your host today. I'm from Shape Talent, and I am delighted to have two fantastic guests today. And I want to welcome Adnan Ahmetovic, who's Director HR Transformation and Strategy at Henkel Consumer Brands, a market leader in products in household and personal care. Great to see you, Adnan.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's a real pleasure. And Professor Rebecca Jones, my colleague who is Managing Consultant at Shape Talent. Over the next half an hour, give or take, we're going to be talking talent accelerators. Why? Well, because they are among the biggest investments many organizations make when they're developing future leaders, when they're strengthening leadership pipelines. And what we found is many organizations are great at describing the program and what's in it and how it's run, but find it much harder to demonstrate the return that those programs generate. So today we're going to hear from Adnan how one organization, Henkel, approached exactly that challenge. He's going to take us through Henkel's journey with Shape Talent, from identifying the problem through to the results that they can now point to. Now, I should say Adnan's experience centers on a women's development program, and the principles he shared, though, apply to talent acceleration for all genders, which is the wider theme of our conversation today. And Rebecca will add an evidence-based perspective throughout, drawing on her research into leadership development and coaching effectiveness, because we don't want coaching that doesn't do anything. We want to know that if you're investing good money in developing your people, you are seeing results at the end. So we'll be chatting, as I say, for about half an hour. We'll leave some time towards the end for your questions. So do use the chat to drop those in good time. Do use the chat to say hello. Tell us where you're joining from today. We've just, in very British style, been discussing the weather. Adnan in Germany has had some rain. We're very jealous here in London. So, let us know how you're doing. But let's dive in. And Adnan, let's start at the beginning of Henkel's journey, because I guess it's fair to say that every effective program is going to start with a clear understanding of the problem that it's trying to solve. So how did you identify what was actually happening in your organization?
Yeah, and thank you very much for the opportunity to share this case. I think it's a really good one, and we are very proud of it. So if I go back where this started, it really began with a question we ask ourselves as an organization. We ask ourselves, are we creating an environment where talented women can truly thrive and build long-term career at Henkel? And for that, we love data. So we started analyzing exit interviews data. Whenever somebody leaves the company, we do an exit interview, and we can leverage this data to go deeper into. And what stood out, that some of the reasons where women were leaving differed from those of men. So that was interesting to us. And at the same time, we knew that we're doing many things right. So we also analyzed data when it comes to promotions, to hirings. And we saw that we are doing a very good job here in terms of diversity. But we weren't retaining all them and to really leverage the full potential, leadership potential of these women. So for us, this wasn't simply a retention issue. So it was about that ensuring women had a voice, visibility, and confidence in they belong to our future leadership landscape. So, and for us at Henkel, we have a target when it comes to female representation in leadership, but it's not simply a target. It really reflects our belief that leadership teams should represent diversity of people and the markets we serve. So therefore, we started to ask ourselves what barriers still exist, what support mechanism are we missing, how do we help talented women to see clear leadership pathways. And here, Shape Talent helped us to rethink these questions. So you really, Shape Talent's research-based approach, I'm sure we will hear more, combined with practical leadership development expertise, this resonated very well with us. And therefore, we really developed this program together, which increased few things that go back to the reasons that I mentioned of the exit interviews. So when it comes to visibility, sponsorship, development, and connection, so those are things that we saw in interviews are missing, and we saw that they're going into. And so therefore, really looking now back, we're very proud, because in the meantime, we had different cohorts, so we call them cohorts, so different programs. We had now 75 talented women who completed the program. And really this helped us to ensure we are really not losing this one. And we have some KPIs I'm also happy to share that really worked very well.
Yeah, look forward to digging into that with you. And I love that ultimately it wasn't just we're launching a program, it was we're trying to ensure we're not losing our future leaders. There's a real clear kind of problem there. So in fact, let me bring you in here, Rebecca, because Adnan's starting point, as he's beautifully outlined for us there, was a specific retention challenge, in this case concerning women. More broadly, though, and across all genders, I wonder how important it is to begin with that really clear sense, clearly defined problem around your talent that you're trying to solve.
Yes, great. Thank you, Rachel, and thanks, Adnan. And it's interesting you said that at Henkel you love data. I think we're very aligned there, because I love data as well. At Shape Talent we love data. So and there's a good reason for that, right? Because it's where the strongest programs begin. You know, we need to understand what the problem is, whatever the specific challenge is, and the groups that it affects. And data is the way that it helps us create that picture. And the evidence is consistent in this space as well. We know that development creates impact when it's clearly aligned to a genuine business need. It's grounded in evidence, so it's grounded in this data, and then measured against meaningful outcomes rather than activity alone. So not just what are you doing, but what's the impact or the outcome from that activity. So what Adnan described is exactly the right starting point. They use data to understand the real problem before deciding on the solution. So whether that issue is retention, a gap in the succession pipeline, perhaps, or the risk of losing high potential people of any gender, defining it clearly at the outset is what lets you measure success later. So I often say that if you can't define success before a program starts, you're going to struggle to prove it afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to come back to you, Adnan, to move us on in the journey, but I just wanted to pause and say hello to folks in the chat who have dropped in. So hi, Dom's in Amsterdam, Susanna's in Lisbon, Daniel there's joining us, works for Zalando. Really nice to see you. Hello, Jess. Do let us know what's resonating from what Adnan and Rebecca are saying. But Adnan, you were talking initially about retention. So take us back. Once you felt that retention challenge was being addressed, your focus evolved and shifted. So tell us about how you moved, rather nicely, got two R's here, from retention to readiness.
Exactly. Yes, indeed. So initially, the focus was on retention. So we wanted talented women to see a future for themselves at Henkel. And we saw encouraging sign. We track regularly the attrition rates, and we saw for this group we had zero retention very much in the beginning. So that we realized that's our success that we have now created. But once you see this success, we ask a new question. So people who stay, how do we help them to see to progress? And so here, what we also found out and was interesting for us, retention alone is not enough. So people want opportunities to grow, to contribute, and to lead. And here we started to shift our focus. So we kept retention as one, but we shifted or we added an additional layer, which was readiness. And this is really what comes with this program. So readiness is not just about capabilities. It's about confidence. It's about visibility. It's about sponsorship. And we consistently heard how powerful role models and sponsors can be. So when people see others who have successfully navigated similar challenges, leadership starts to feel attainable. And therefore, we wanted that participants of our program feel seen, build meaningful networks among themselves, gain confidence, and prepare for leadership opportunities. So ultimately, readiness is not only about preparing individuals, it's about preparing the organization to recognize and support these leadership talents that we have here.
Yeah, and I love that, the fact that it's not just focused on the participants, but you're bringing in other people in the organization. It's got to be much broader with your sponsors and the line managers and so on. Yeah, really interesting. Rebecca, that shift, I guess, from retention to readiness for people to step up into leadership roles is one that many organizations grapple with. We talk to a lot of people, don't we, at Shape Talent about this. For all their talent, whether it's women or all genders, all kinds of people who need to progress and be ready. So I wonder what the evidence, again, because we love that, tells us about how you build genuine readiness.
Yes, yeah, it's such a good point. And in fact, there's many decades of research on this topic, and a related topic, which is all around learning transfer. And in fact, this was a core part of my own PhD many years ago now, because for me, this has been the essence of what I'm interested in. How do we make sure that a powerful learning experience in the classroom or the workshop translates into impact beyond that? And what we know is that readiness is rarely created in the workshop itself, or that alone is insufficient. And the evidence echoes exactly what Adnan highlighted there, that it's created in what happens afterwards. So particularly this idea that learning transfer, so how do we make sure that what happens in the workshop has an impact beyond the workshop, is supported by creating the conditions for people to apply and sustain new behaviours outside of that learning environment. And the data suggests that there are three things that are important. There's many things, like most human problems are complicated, but there's three things that seem to have an important influence. So that's visible senior leader support, focused line manager support, and then real opportunities to practice and apply learning in the flow of work. So readiness isn't simply about equipping people with skills. It's about the organization creating the conditions that can then stretch individuals, provide them with visibility, and the support that then allows people of any gender to step up and demonstrate that they're ready.
Yeah, nothing more frustrating than being on, say, any kind of development or training program where you feel like you've been in an amazing workshop, and then you go back into your organization and there's nothing to support you to move forward, or there's nobody's created the right support and environment. So Adnan, take us a little bit deeper then into this program. You lived it from the inside. I wonder what your experience was of it, what you think really made it work and made it effective.
Yeah. So, and let me start. The content, it's really amazing, and we have looked into the feedback we got from participants was very, very well rated. So we do surveys afterwards. But looking back, the most powerful aspect wasn't the training content itself. It was the relationship this program created. So because the participants connected, as you said, with peers, so other participants, but with senior leaders, so typically with the direct reports, but sponsors, which in our case, we nominated senior leaders from the organization and mentors. And so these connections created trust, confidence, sense of belonging, and they created also opportunities. So because careers sometimes change because, not because somebody teach you something, more often career change because someone helps you to see the possibility that you have not previously considered. And this comes with a close connection to the sponsors, to the mentors. So therefore, the strongest elements that we see a lot, and it continues way after the program, official program ends, it's the mentorship and the sponsorship. So, and mentorship isn't just valuable for the woman, that's important. So everyone benefits from this one, who believes them, challenge them, and because really the sponsors and the mentors that we have seen here help even further. So we intentionally created opportunities for those relationships to develop. And we saw over time, some participants can become mentors and role model themselves. So over time, from the first cohort then probably to the last one. And so this is where really the cultural change starts, because someone who was early in the program, then was promoted and later become a mentor, was a much, much stronger speaker. And so therefore, development is not happening because we run a program. It happens because leaders create these opportunities for people, and people apply what they learned in the program. So the strongest outcomes, what we heard is engaged mentors, super active sponsors even later, and meaningful stretch opportunities. These are the three things.
Yeah. And briefly, Rebecca, is that kind of echoing, matching what you see in programs that work?
Yes, definitely it does. So programs that succeed, they treat development as a process rather than an event, and engage sponsors and managers from the start. So what Adnan describes, this idea of active involvement from leaders and managers, is one of the strongest predictors of whether a program delivers. And I'd also say, from my experience of working with Henkel and some of our other clients, it's so wonderful as a coach when you are having your coaching sessions and your IDP process, and you have a line manager who is a previous participant, and it shows a different level of engagement and commitment, and it's kind of a real testament to the success of the program, because of course they've progressed, they're now a line manager themselves, so it feels like it coming full circle. It's lovely.
Yeah, and something that's truly embedded in the organization, as you say, not just a kind of tick box, yeah, we ran a program. It's like everybody is engaged with it and involved. So let's talk KPIs, because importantly, you're making a big investment on these things, and people want to be able to demonstrate returns. So Adnan, when you look at the numbers, what are the KPIs for you that really kind of demonstrate the return on the investment?
Yeah, I said we love to look into the numbers, and I think I mentioned we had over the different cohorts 75 high potential women who completed the program. The strongest indicator that we measure success is promotion. I really mean promotion in terms of a next grade, a bigger role. And we see out of this 75 females, and one cohort just finished, 40% are already in a bigger role and in a bigger grade. So this is really for us the strongest KPI that we see. 40% is way more than you would see on workforce who don't join the program. So this really tells us we're not developing talent, we are helping people to progress, and we are very proud of this one. Secondly, our initial start was on retention. As I said, we have a very low attrition; it's almost zero. So that's another goal that will really help us to keep the talents, to give them a perspective. So it suggests participants are seeing opportunities for growth and choosing continue careers at Henkel. And we now view the program as both a strong development program, so this is the focus on readiness, and a strong retention program. Now it's really both. Development without retention has limited impact. So retention without growth has limited impact. So we look at succession readiness and pipeline strength. We are both. And really beyond the numbers, some of the most rewarding moments come when former participants remember, that was just mentioned, sponsors or even leaders themselves, because then it's really large to start to evolve. And it's like a multiplier effect that becomes really visible here. I'm very proud on this one.
Yeah, thank you. Rebecca, if other organizations are thinking about this, we've heard from Adnan how they measured the effectiveness, the return on investment. What are some of the guidelines? What should people be thinking about when you think, I need to get interested in the data and something I can measure and show?
Yes, yeah. And I suppose maybe a good place to start is that it's important to be clear about what ROI actually means. So in the strictest sense, return on investment is a financial calculation. So you put a monetary value on the benefits a program delivers. So subtract the cost and then express the result as a percentage of that cost. The difficulty is that the benefits of development show up first in how people behave and only later in these quantifiable business results. So a purely financial figure can take time to appear, and it's genuinely hard to isolate as well. So, I think we need to be pragmatic about this. Human behavior, organizations are complex. There's lots of different reasons why some of these things can happen. But that's ultimately what ROI is about. That's why I also find that return on expectations is a useful companion measure. So this means agreeing at the outset what good would look like. So what do we expect from this program? So is this progression? Is it retention? Is it readiness? Is it leadership capability or competency development you expect to see? And then measuring against that. And for talent acceleration of any kind for all genders, the strongest, most effective programs measure against both return on investment and return on expectation. And of course, not just whether participants enjoyed the experience. In fact, we know some of the most powerful learning experiences are not very enjoyable at all, unfortunately. So basing success on participant reactions alone is a very poor proxy for impact. So this is why we recommend looking at both ROI and ROE.
Yeah, I like that. But let's turn to the feedback, because as Rebecca was saying, Adnan, it's not about having a jolly time, but you are obviously very curious about what the people who are involved, whether those are the participants, the line managers, the sponsors, mentors, what they're saying, what they're experiencing, not just in like, was it fun, did I have a good time, but what real changes are they seeing in themselves, in the people around them. So I wonder what kind of feedback you were getting from the program.
Yeah. Yes, we asked, of course, for feedback. We've been very curious. And what I found amazing, the feedback from participants was often very personal. So what we heard frequently is they talked about increased confidence, about greater self-awareness, about stronger networks, but also more clarity about career aspirations. And one that I have not forgotten in the very first cohort, colleague came to me, a female. She said, it's the first training ever that provided a truly safe space to speak up. So that was amazing for us. I was proud that we have accomplished a training that is doing so. But also I was challenged that not every training is like that. So most importantly, many talked about feeling more visible and more connected. That's very consistent feedback we heard. The sponsors, so it's not just about participants, the sponsors also told us they discovered talent they might not otherwise have had exposure to. Managers, so the direct supervisors, they talked, they also noted, they said like it's increased leadership presence, greater confidence, more willingness to take ownership, more proactive career conversation. As you rightfully said, it's you cannot measure many of the things. It's hard to isolate to see, but the supervisors, they saw these things and came back to us. So that we were very proud about this one. What was particularly interesting was how often all three groups observed similar changes: supervisors, sponsors, and the participant themselves. And the most recurring theme wasn't technical, right? It was more about confidence to speak up, confidence to pursue opportunities, confidence to lead. And so these outcomes are difficult to measure directly, but they often come with the foundation for future advancement in their careers. We're very happy.
Thank you. I'm keeping an eye on the time, so I'm going to move on. We're almost at Q&A. So if you've got a question, I can see Daniel has dropped a question in the chat, which we'll come to in a moment. It might be that we've touched on some of that actually just in the last answer. But let's think about, for HR and talent leaders listening in today, I wonder if you've got maybe 3 things that you'd encourage them to do, Adnan, if they want to see a real return from a talent acceleration program. Maybe 3 things if you've got them.
Yeah, I think you said it in the beginning, so that you really start with a business challenge. So not by design. It's much easier to convince the business if you have a business challenge. In our case, it was retention, and you say, let's solve it. So what the second piece I would like is create real sponsorship. So take the time to explain what is the expectation of a good sponsor, so that they really need to endorse the program, that they need to actively to support and advocate for the talent. So, and then the sponsorship is super powerful. And the third one is think beyond the program itself. So the leadership development doesn't end when the workshop is over, right? It creates opportunities to practice, to provide visibility, for stretch assignments, for career discussions. So it's really like program is a starting point, but it does not end after that.
Yeah, thank you. Rebecca, from the evidence, what might you add into here?
Yes, well, I'd echo many of what's been said, but I would say, evaluation is something that doesn't just happen at the end of the program. It should be something that we think about, in fact, through every step. So I'd highlight 3 things. First, be clear about the talent problem you're trying to solve and what success looks like before you design the program. So often, people who are working in this space, they get very excited by different ideas, and they might have a great idea for a workshop. That's all great, but if it's not aligned with the problem and what success looks like, then it's just a great idea. It's not going to translate into impact. So secondly is involving sponsors and managers from the beginning. We've heard today about how important that support around the individual is. It's absolutely critical to whether anything sticks. Learning transfer happens outside of the classroom, and sponsors and managers have a critical role in enabling that to happen. And then thirdly, it's deciding how you're going to measure success before the program launches. Once the program's underway, it's too late really to make those decisions. You need to be very clear right at the beginning what you're going to measure, how you're going to measure, and you design towards this. So doing those 3 things well for any group of talent means that you'll significantly increase the chances that investment creates meaningful, measurable impact.
Yeah, brilliant. And I know that you and Shape Talent, when we work with people, are very clear on those things, and that piece about what are you trying to achieve. There's a lot of challenge at the beginning and really important conversations that have to be had before anybody starts going, here's a workshop on this. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Rebecca. There's a question in the chat from Daniel, and I want to check I've understood this, and I'll look at it, and then I'll see, Rebecca, Adnan, whether which of you wants to take it, or you might both have some comments. So return on expectation is nice, says Daniel, but sometimes does not buy in to MB members. Is there any experience on how this program contributes to consumer product? What do we know if those promotions have contributed positively to women? What has changed in their life? I suspect we spoke a little bit about the impact for participants, but Adnan, any thoughts on that? And then Rebecca, I can invite you in. I'm going to confess I wasn't totally clear on Daniel's background there.
So if I understood the question fully, so it has definitely contributed very positively. It also provided fairness for the women, because some of them have been doing a job, and with this program helping them to increase their readiness, we also helped that they got promoted. So that was something clearly for me. Also, it's a matter of fairness, and was our duty. So therefore, the short answer is yes, it has definitely contributed positively.
Great, thank you. Rebecca, any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, so I guess I'd add 2 things. I think that in terms of the positive impact, Adnan's talked about retention and promotion. So those are the 2 positive impacts. You can assume that if someone has stayed within the organization, that they want to stay, they feel that they're thriving or they're happier there. So we can assume a positive impact. And promotion, I'd say we can assume a positive impact, because ultimately, when we partner with organizations, we also think about who gets nominated to go on these programs. And those are generally people who are interested in promoting and progressing through their career. So again, it's about aligning that intended outcome with the actual outcome. You know, these are people who want to progress, they want to be promoted, they've been nominated to participate, and then we see that as a positive outcome. I think we can also look at this in terms of, so Daniel mentions contributing to consumer product. Adnan touched on this at the very beginning, that one of the motivators for Henkel having this program in the first place was recognizing that the distribution or balance of people in the organization, they want that to reflect their consumers. And so ultimately, that's an important driver as well. You know, if you have a number of women who are your end customers, you know, we want to have an organization, employees in the organization that represent that. So while it's very difficult to kind of isolate the impact of these things, I think there's lots of data generally that shows that representation is really important.
Brilliant. Thank you for your question, Daniel. I hope we addressed that and interpreted it correctly. Thank you so much. It's really great. We know that you're very familiar with a lot of what we do already, so it's really nice to have your question. Thank you. So time has run away with us. If you still have a question, if you're watching this on replay, please do still drop it into the chat. We're always delighted to engage with it. I know Rebecca always keeps eyes on this. I'm sure Adnan as well would be happy to answer any follow-up questions. We're so grateful for your insights and your time, Adnan, because our relationship with Henkel has been and continues to be very precious and really uplifting and positive for all of us. And it's lovely to hear, you know, you be able to break down those very measurable results, and it's great to have your time today. So thank you. But if the discussion that Rebecca and Adnan have had today has sparked ideas for you about how you can strengthen the impact of your own talent acceleration programs, then of course Rebecca would be very glad to continue the conversation. You can reach her through LinkedIn. Go to our website as well. We have email addresses, rebecca.jones@shapetalent.com if you want to go direct to Rebecca, because we really want people to get a return on their investment. These are not a nice to have. These are not, oh, that would be a lovely thing for folks to be signed up to. We want to know that these make a real measurable difference to what is happening in your organization. Finally, it remains for me to say we're taking a break, like I hope many of you are, to relax over the summer. So we will see you again for our next LinkedIn Live in the autumn. If you follow us, make sure you're connected, then you will know when we've set that up. You can get that date in your diary. You'll be the first to hear what topic we are covering and the date that we will be doing that. So thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you to Adnan and Rebecca, and we look forward to seeing you after a restful break over the summer. Take care, everybody. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.